But we have to start with the Browns, who looked great in their win over Cincinnati. They're 3-5 now, but suddenly 3-5 feels kind of odd when you look at what the Ravens all of a sudden are doing and where they are. And boy, did they upgrade themselves with the trade of all trades at the deadline. He was a monster last night. That they talked about it during the telecast. The two positions that you can make the most impact right away, linebacker and running back, and we've seen that both with McCaffrey in San Francisco. And last night, my goodness, he's an animal. But the Ravens now are starting to feel like they're putting some real distance.
They're pulling away
Between everybody else. And I don't know that at 3-5 you can start looking at wild cards in the AFC.
The Miami game is actually really important in terms of that because they've lost so many AFC games.
Yeah,
they're not going to have tiebreakers.
You're exactly right. You cannot lose AFC games at this point.
So just even winning the Miami game could be huge in terms of tiebreakers down the stretch.
I think that we all think that's a winnable game. I mean, we'll make our picks as we get on. But
now you're on that boat watching this Browns game, and you said there were a bunch of other Browns fans on there, none of whom you knew before. It just happened to be.
I knew none of them prior to.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so this is how they felt the move.
And by the way, I was stunned at how many people commented on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on the ship. Now, granted, they're all Browns fans in that area, but that's the community that we've made the biggest inroads with, obviously,
boat folk.
Browns fans.
Oh, yeah.
And
Browns fans.
So that was kind of cool to see that, we've resonated the Browns fan psyche.
You could feel it, though, in the group where at the beginning of that game, like, you knew that if we lost that game, then, like, pretty much the vibe of the season was
It was
dead.
the season. Everybody pretty much agreed we've got to win to stay alive.
So what was it like, the vibe where you were at afterwards? Was it just like, well?
Drinks were flowing.
Right?
Drinks were flowing.
Isn't that
in typical Cleveland sports fan fashion,
you start doing math.
You always get pulled back in just when you jump off. And then it's like, whoa, more pain to dispense. Come back on, and we're going to slap you around a little bit. Then you can jump off. Then you can, we'll pull you back in.
Such a toxic
relationship.
It really is.
It really is a toxic relationship. But it was crazy to me was the fan base was cheering just as hard as if we were 8-0. It's just insane.
We are sweet idiots.
I'm telling you, there's just a different thread that Cleveland sports fans have going through them that other teams' fans just don't seem to have. But that's a part of it, that love-hate relationship. But now everything looks good. So now you start looking ahead. You're like, okay, well, Miami's doable. And then you look at Tampa Bay. Well, Tom Brady, with the exception of that last drive on Sunday, has not been Tom Brady. So you start looking at these games
then all of
and
a sudden
you start racking up wins.
You convince yourself, you're like, Buffalo's due for a fall.
Well, Josh Allen's hurt now.
There you go.
So,
we can find ways to rationalize our way into the playoffs easily.
That's what we do. So today we're going to focus on the offense of the Browns against the Miami defense, and some pertinent numbers for you here. Miami's defense in yards allowed per game, 23rd. Passing defense, yards allowed, 23rd. Rushing defense, 15th. Points, 25th. The Browns offense, it's crazy to me how well they've performed compared to everybody else in the league.
Yeah, you think we'd be better.
They're fourth, I know. They're fourth in total yards. They're 7th in total points. They're 16th in passing yards and 3rd in rushing yards. When you look at these numbers and you realize that Miami's defense is down here and the Browns offense is up here, how do we go after this Miami defense, which has been really, really, really bad against the pass?
Well, I want to keep the ball out of Tua's hands and not out of Tyreek Hill's hands. So I'm going to agree with run Nick Chubb. I know we've had that argument over and over and over. Is Nick Chubb getting the ball enough? I think you really need to try and establish the run in this game just because Miami can score so many points in such a hurry. We saw that in the Atlanta game when they go for it on 4th and 3 from the 4 because they felt like Atlanta could score points and they needed 6 instead of 3s.
Right.
I think you're going to see a lot of that again this Sunday because this team can score in bunches. You're going to see them trying to be aggressive, score 6s instead of 3s. I just think you need to establish the run because, it's a no-duh, but just because of Miami's potent offense, you want them to have the ball as least amount as possible.
It's a no-duh. I love that one.
It is a no-duh.
It's a no-duh.
Adam, what's the secret?
Well, a couple of things, guys. Before I get to specifics of this game and why I want to tell you why my optimism has grown. Because think about this, right? We know the Browns have played well against the Bengals. So it's easy for somebody to say, well, they played great against the Bengals, but so what? They did last year and they sucked anyway. And there was part of me thinking that after the game. But then and I know Carolina's not good. I get it. But the Browns' defense had been just as bad as Carolina's defense going into the last couple of weeks. And yet the Bengals this weekend went out there and played maybe the best first half of football that any team has played all season, up 35-0 on Carolina at halftime. So here I'm thinking the Browns shut down a team, an offense, that for the last 5 weeks before they played them was phenomenal. They lose Chase, so you think maybe, okay, that's a big factor, which it is. But without Chase, they scored 35 on Carolina in the first half. A Carolina team, frankly, that had been playing decent football the last couple of weeks with P.J. Walker. So that, to me, the way the Bengals played against Carolina made what the Browns did to the Bengals even more impressive and has grown my confidence. And here's the second reason specific to what you guys said in terms of the Browns' defense against the Dolphins' offense. The Bengals struggled to run the ball all year until yesterday against Carolina. Well, what are and they graded throwing the ball. Well, the Dolphins are the exact same thing. The Dolphins are 6-0 when Tua starts and finishes a game. They've won not because their defense has been great in most of these games. It's been okay. Not because they can run the ball, because they throw the ball. And if you're one-dimensional against the Browns, that can be a problem. It was for the Bengals last week, and it might be for the Dolphins again this week. In fact, the Dolphins are even less committed to the run than the Bengals are. They're averaging under 4 yards per carry. Unlike the Bengals, they don't have a really good back like Joe Mixon. Now, they got Jeff Wilson, who did okay this week from the Niners, but they don't have a really good backfield. And I think the Browns appear to be a defense that when you go one-dimensional pass only, it works for them. And so that could be the advantage that the Browns could take in this game, because the Dolphins really have had an inability to run the football.
It's a good point, and it's just a real head-scratcher to me. The Bengals against the Browns, for whatever reason, this is carried over now. This is the third straight season we've seen it. They just look like a completely different team, and I don't know if it's something Joe Woods is throwing at them. They didn't seem to – I mean, defensively, just what they were putting out there was working. They certainly got pressure on the quarterback, which always helps. One stat that's a little concerning to me, I mentioned Miami's rushing allowed yards. They're 15th, middle of the road, nothing great. But most of the rushing yards against the Dolphins defense has actually been put on the board by the opposing quarterbacks. They're holding running backs to 55 yards a game, opposing running backs. And that scares me a little bit.
And that was pre-Chubb, right?
Well, Miami is. So, I mean, we'll see what Chubb can do against them. But, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But the fact that they're only averaging 55 yards allowed on the ground is a little concerning to me, because talk about one-dimensional. If you're the Browns and the run game is not working at all, you're in big trouble.
And you're counting on that Jacoby Brissett cannon to carry you through the game?
Yeah, don't have high hopes for that.
No, you're right. That would be ugly. And I'm concerned about a little bit, I feel like understandably so, about the secondary. Still dinged up a little bit and going against these guys. Putting a lot of pressure on what's his face, Emerson? Is that his name?
Yeah, Emerson.
I mean, for being a rookie and just relying on him to have to cover this, and Greedy Williams, which that's not a great situation.
He's still on the team, huh?
Yeah, he still is. He's lingering about. So that's one of my big concerns.
Hopeful. There you see the tweet from Zach yesterday that Denzel will be cleared in time to play. Obviously, they could use Denzel Ward. He hasn't had a great year, but they could use Denzel Ward against Tyreek Hill and these receivers, and these Miami receivers.
That's what scares me. Hill's the matchup. I mean, obviously every team struggles.
Yeah.
But if Ward isn't there to match up,
he's the cheat code. I don't know how you cover Tyreek.
You don't. I mean, your hope is that you can put a lid on him and don't let him get behind defenses, but that's really difficult to say. And
you bracket the coverage toward Tyreek and play man on everyone else, and
I don't want
for the best.
I don't want to curse the kid, but shout out to that Martin Emerson dude so far this year. He is. We talk a lot about like Anthony Schwartz and some of the misses and stuff in the draft. That's a dude they got in the third round.
Yeah, they nailed it.
And he
was considered a reach at that point. No one, didn't go to a big school.
I don't know if it'll keep going in this direction, but so far, I mean, he looks very comfortable out there.
He does. He looks like he belongs. Yeah. I like the fact that he's bigger and longer. When you have the same body type in your defensive backfield, and then you get a receiver that is a big, long receiver.
Right.
You have no answers to put on someone like that. Well, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons they were so attracted to him, but he's played great so far. Hopefully he can continue. I think Denzel is the linchpin in this game. I think if he plays and plays well, the Browns win. I think if he doesn't play, it's going to be a serious, serious uphill climb. And I think I saw this morning that Njoku has been upgraded to questionable.
Yeah, still no word. I think there's a chance he plays.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, you would think it's getting better. Originally, he had ruled out playing the week after the injury,
right?
Which was kind of surprising to me. And he's had the bye week. He's had another couple extra weeks here to heal up.
Would they tell us if he was on path, or does Stefanski hide his hand often
Jason,
when he's doing this stuff?
What's your
yeah? Well, I think Njoku they'll probably take right up to a game time decision.
Because why tell him?
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't,
and it may truly be. Some guys really are let's get to Sunday, go through workouts, see how you feel on the field, and we'll make a decision based off that.
McNuggets.
Yeah, tease for tomorrow. Coach Tyvis is going to break out the whiteboard and show us what the Browns defense should do or should try to do against Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, because they've been absurd this year. We showed the stat yesterday. If you pull up the receiving stat about Tyreek, he has more yards by himself. You can take tag board full here. More yards than 7, 8, 9 teams in the NFL by himself, which is just silly.
That's insane.
And
Wow,
the Browns
that's
play
incredible.
a ton of zone, and Tyvis showed me the play he wants to break down tomorrow and how what's they're looking for, how playing zone like that could just lead to dink and dunk, death by paper cut if the Dolphins play it. So just tomorrow around 11:45ish, Coach Tyvis, must-see TV.
What is the single-season record for receiving yards? Did Randy Moss have that?
Calvin Johnson
Cooper
in
Kupp.
2000. Cooper
Didn't
Kupp last
Cooper
year.
Kupp break it last year?
No, I think Calvin Johnson did. I'll look it up. Bo, you said you had a comment on the running backs. I'll look up the record.
Yeah,
Look it up, because I thought Cooper Kupp broke it. Maybe he fell just short last year. But, Jay, to your point on what the Dolphins have done against the running backs, if you think about it, I mean, Baltimore and Chicago, two teams they faced, they're led by their running quarterbacks, right? But they played against Buffalo and Cincinnati, who don't run the ball or haven't. Pittsburgh hasn't run on anybody. But if you look at when they faced the Jets, Breece Hall had a good game against them. Dalvin Cook had a good game against them in Minnesota. With Detroit, DeAndre Swift had just come back from injury. He didn't play that much in that game. So in those, they haven't faced a lot of top running backs. The two top running backs they've faced both played well, Cook and Breece Hall, before he got hurt, obviously.
And I imagine Josh Allen was the leading rusher for the Bills when they played
Josh Allen
Miami.
was the leading rusher.
Yeah.
He had you go right to the next one, Steve. Cut right to the next one. He had one more. He had 48 yards, and Zach Moss had 46. The single-season record, by the way.
Yeah.
Calvin Johnson, 1,964 yards. Cooper Kupp was 18 yards short of that last year.
Yeah, I knew it was close.
Tyreek Hill's on pace to crack 2,000.
Yeah, I was going to say he's going to demolish that record this year
Yeah.
if he stays healthy and stays on that pace.
Like, records are going to be getting kind of weird with the
Yeah, with the 17 games.
And they only have those two guys because I think Mike Gesicki, I believe, is the Dolphins' third leading receiver with like 200 yards. So it's the two guys. He goes to them all the time because they're great, both of them, him and Watt.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? They get open, and that.
So all we got to do is lock down Tyreek Hill, and we'll be fine, guys.
That's it.
There you go.
That's
Get him, Greedy Williams.
Good luck with that.
We're fine.
Good. It's incredible watching Hill, how much he's open. Even there are times when he doesn't get the ball, and he could get these open.
Yeah.
It's just, they decided to go somewhere else.
How did Tua suddenly turn the corner this year?
Tyreek Hill.
That's why. That's really what it is.
I've never been sold on Tua as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
His release is wonky.
Yeah.
I just don't think his decision-making is there. I've never been sold on him. It goes to show you what a game-breaking wide receiver who is constantly open can do.
And he's
for
catching-
an otherwise average or below average quarterback. Tua's been below average.
Right.
His
That's what I'm
career
saying.
was in the balance.
This
coming
came
into
out of
this
nowhere.
season.
We
That's
actually,
it.
I asked Aditi that yesterday. We had Aditi on, and we were talking about, I said, are the Dolphins finally sold on Tua now? And she said Mike McDaniel is sold on Tua and has been from day one.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it is, listen, he knows he's been jerked around a little bit, is he or isn't he? And Mike McDaniel from day one has told him, you are our guy. Don't worry about that. Don't look over your shoulder. Go out there and play. I think he's been put in positions to be successful. I think he has confidence now. He has the backing of the organization now. And having Tyreek Hill out there to throw to certainly helps as well.
I mean, you give
The
any
confidence,
quarterback
guys.
Tyreek Hill, and they're going to be better. Go ahead, Bull.
The confidence from the coach, I think Jason brings up a great point. You're right. I mean, I was with you, Jay. I'm not a believer in Tua. I still think he's got to prove it longer. But it is fair to say that Brian Flores was screwing with him last year. I mean, he was like worried about getting benched every time he threw a bad pass, and nobody's going to have success that way. I think that's clearly something that's big. The coach right off the bat believe in him. Plus, now it's a couple of years off those serious injuries that he had. So I think that probably factors in as well. I don't think anybody thinks he's a great quarterback, but he's playing great football. So give him credit.
How many times over the years have we heard the Dolphins have 2 number 1 picks and they're looking at quarterbacks and they're trying to figure out if 2 is the end? I mean, Adam Schefter was reporting that seemingly every year. Is the whole do the Dolphins stick with Tua? Do they move on from him?
Right.
And at some point, that wears on guys for sure.
Yeah, you hear it enough, it does become the drowning, the overwhelming noise in the room. And I think that. Look, if you put Tyreek Hill on any team in the NFL, their offensive production is going to go up. Their quarterback is going to look better. He also has, I think this is important to state, is that he has a great second option. With Waddle, the production between the two of them.
Right.
Mike, you showed that Hill has more yards than 9 teams by himself.
Pull it back up. We read
if
this
you
yesterday,
added
we'll do it
Waddle
again.
to the mix, they probably have more receiving yards than half the league's teams.
So right now, if the season ended today, Tyreek Hill is first in the NFL in receiving yards. He has nearly 250 more receiving yards than Justin Jefferson, who's in second. Jalen Waddle's in 5th in the league. He's 1 yard behind Cooper Kupp for 4th, and he's only 43 yards behind Justin Jefferson for 2nd.
Wow.
So those two combined,
if he went off against the Browns, they could have the number 1 and number 2 receivers in the NFL.
Those two combined have 2,000
that out
receiving
there.
yards. The Browns as a team, or Brissett has thrown for 1,900 yards. So
Yeah.
that puts it into consideration or context.
Now you give Tua the quarterback or the wide receivers of the Patriots or the Cowboys, hell, even the Browns.
Sure. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Tua looks like he looks like a middle-of-the-road guy.
And that's because I've always believed that a franchise quarterback, an elite quarterback, can make an ordinary receiving core better than an elite receiver can make an ordinary quarterback.
Right.
But Tyreek is starting to challenge that a little bit.
He's the one guy that would change my mind on that because I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always, when Baker played really well, he made Brashard Perryman look like an all-pro as a rookie.
Yeah, and if you go back to his time at Kansas City, and they talked about this during the broadcast of the game Sunday night with Kansas City, they said that, I haven't looked this up statistically, I don't know, but they said that Patrick Mahomes is on pace to have his best year ever as a pro.
Yeah.
He leads the league in passing yards at the moment.
Which is stunning because you literally think about what Kansas City had.
Yep.
Yeah.
They had the dynamic, game-changing wide receiver and the dynamic, game-changing quarterback.
And the tight end.
And the tight end. It's a mystery to me that they've only won one.
Yep.
With all of that talent.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, they only managed to win.
And both
the
of
one
them are
Super Bowl.
producing despite going their separate ways.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's not like
it turns
they
out
needed
it
the other to be who they
turns
are.
out they were both fine without each other. You know?
And it's very
funny-
rare that happens.
It's funny, too, because Mahomes and Tyreek it's worked out for both sides.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers
That's
is the
different.
opposite.
Oh, my
Aaron
goodness.
Rodgers
You stole
has
my
no
point,
one to
Mike.
throw to. Oh, Bull, sorry. Bull, you can go. You can finish. It's a tag team effort.
It's so fun hearing you just pipe in without seeing
I
you
know.
right out of the way. 'Cause it sounds like a puppet from Crank Yankers is trying to butt in.
Well, Bull,
No, I
I
was
set you up for
literally
the alley.
just
You got to throw down the oop now.
But you know what's funny is that Devontae Adams, who's obviously one of the best receivers in football, he leaves Green Bay. They've been awful this year. But he goes to Oakland. He's putting up good numbers, but they're terrible too.
Yeah.
They've been horrible. Derek Carr's having a miserable year, and it is remarkable. So he hasn't made that, even though in theory he's negatively affected the Packers because they're 3-6, but it hasn't had a positive effect on the Raiders, even though he has still put up pretty good numbers. Not Tyreek Hill numbers, but pretty good number. I think he's top 10 in receiving.
I thought the Carr-Adams thing, they played together in college. I thought that combo would just pick up where they left off and everything would be great. So it really is an interesting study to see what's happened with Kansas City and Miami and then juxtapose that with what's happened with the Raiders who have gone south and the Packers can't score a touchdown all of a sudden. They can't
Let me give you another one, guys.
Yeah.
Let me give you another one where it's also worked out similar to Miami. How about Philadelphia with A.J. Brown going there?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Jalen Hurts is in the MVP conversation. He's been remarkable. A.J. Brown's been one of the best receivers in football.
Yeah, it really is
Did
stunning.
people see that coming? Did people see Philly coming?
I didn't.
I thought they'd be good.
You know, the stat
this
that I
good.
always talk
Not
about that
this
I think
good.
is the most reflective stat in terms of looking at one stat and guessing success for the season is the takeaway. Mm-hmm. I looked at it this morning. Philly's first. New England is second. I think the Ravens are third. All of the teams that are at the top
You would expect, yeah.
are when you look at the records, yeah, makes sense. As much as we talk about wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks and defense, there really is one stat that is very predictive to what your win-loss record is going to be, and it comes down to the turnover margin.
Yeah.
You can look at the top teams in the league, and they're the best in terms of records, and you can look at the teams that are bottom in the league, and they're usually amongst the worst.
But it's so hard to predict turnovers.
A lot of them are fluky.
Yeah, you could be +6 one year and -3 the next.
Yeah, you can't bank on it.
Everybody coaches get the ball out defensively,
Sure.
rip the ball out,
But
ball
yeah,
hockey and all
the
that.
fact that winning is dependent on that statistic that's out of your control in some ways is.
Yeah, I mean, in some there's certain things you can do to force, strip sacks.
Yep.
Those sometimes coverage interceptions where your DBs are so good, quarterbacks start squeezing it into windows. Mikey, did you look that up?
Yeah, so we all know turnovers is always a good indicator of winning.
Yeah.
But of the top 10 teams in the NFL right now in turnover differential, there's one anomaly. I'm going to read this in order.
There usually is one at the
10.
top and the bottom.
I'm going to read. I'll check the bottom in a sec. But
Yeah.
of the top 10, this is from 1 down to 10. Let's point out the anomaly. The Eagles at +15, number 1 team in the league. Ravens second, +7. Cowboys third, +6. Vikings tied for third at +6. Bengals +3. Titans +3. Cardinals +3. Seahawks +3. Giants +2. And Chargers +2.
The Seahawks or the
Cardinals are the anomaly, 'cause
Are the
they
anomaly
suck.
there?
But they've also turned the ball over a lot. They just have had very lucky turnover fortunes. They picked off Andy Dalton twice in that one game. For
Took
pick
one for a
sixes.
pick six.
Returned one for a pick. Both of them for pick six. They
Yeah,
had 2
you're
pick
right.
sixes.
And within a minute or so.
And at the bottom, I'm looking at it now. I mean, these are the worst teams in the league. New Orleans, dead last. They're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts, second. They're terrible. The Rams, the Packers, the Panthers, the Commanders, the Steelers, and then the Browns. who
Yeah.
are -4 in the turnover
Well, and if you look
differential.
at where the Browns are, they're 3 and 5,
About-
and that's probably. I mean, it really is. It's a crazy stat. As
And are you
much
ready
as
for
we
the
talk
anomaly,
about
the
numbers,
opposite?
yeah,
Miami, -3.
yeah, I knew Miami. That's why I started down this road. Miami does not take the ball away. It's not that they turn it over so much; they just don't take it away. I think they're second to
31st
last in the league.
Second to last in forced.
In
They have 3
takeaways.
takeaways all season. That's it. 3.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So it's really, really tough to win long term in this league. And the larger the sample size gets, the more this holds true. At the end of the year, when we look at that, I bet there won't be an anomaly in the top 10.
No, because
or in
now
the bottom 10.
they're going to have 5 turnovers on us because we're putting this out there into the world.
The
that
Chiefs
how
are
it
also
works?
middle of the pack. That's
Yep.
the other kind of weird one. The Chiefs and the Bills are both. Chiefs are -1. Bills are +1 in the turnover differential.
Yeah. Like I said, the bigger the sample size, the more that these teams will separate from where they are. Because the Bengals, I think you said, were +3, and they were in top 10. So -1, obviously over the next 7 or 8 games, that all could come out in the wash. But I don't know. I think the Browns absolutely have to take care of the football. You can't. It just really speaks to what this league is. If you turn the ball away, turn the ball over, and you don't, and you get turnovers, it's really hard to be successful when you're giving the football away, particularly when you're giving the team a short field.
Did you anybody foresee the Browns, though, with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback averaging 25 points a game, which is pretty remarkable?
No, I had to do Zach Jackson, my partner on the Browns, and I did a Browns at the Bye type podcast, and he said, come up with something that you were right about and wrong about. And I said Jacoby Brissett for both. Because ultimately, he's been far better than I ever thought he could be. Far better. But he's also had
Turned it over a lot
the
more than we
catastrophic turnovers
Yes.
and end-of-game situations that has absolutely killed them. So you can look at all their offensive numbers and say, Jacoby Brissett's not the problem with this team. And while I agree with that, Brissett has absolutely killed them in late game situations when you got to have it from your quarterback.
Just give them the Jets game. That was the one that
that's the one
going
I
back.
totally agree with you. I said we're going to get to the end of the year, and that's the one.
Yeah.
Just fall on the ball. Just fall on the onside kick.
That's it.
That's the
Win
one
that
that could
game.
really haunt them. Because how much different do they look at 4-4 as opposed to 3-5?
Well, they've got a legitimate shot at getting to 6-5, which is what everybody thought they needed to be when Watson came back. If this offense is 4th in yards with Jacoby Brissett, they could be one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL with Deshaun Watson.
Which is why I keep screaming about the Kevin Stefanski nonsense. Like, what else do you want him to do? He's had bad moments. He's had bad games. Yes.
Every coach does.
Of course.
Every coach.
But look at what he's been given throughout his career at quarterback, and look what he's done with it.
Yeah.
What else do you want from the guy? Like, he's had, it drives me crazy. And I do think they're going to be explosive when they get Deshaun in there. Maybe not right away. It's going to take some time.
But now to get to 6-5, you got to win out. You got to win the last 3.
Yeah. And that's
Bull, is that doable?
Can they win the last 3?
Yeah, before they get Watson back.
If Josh Allen's arm falls off today and he goes into surgery.
Can they? Yes. Will they? Probably not. I don't think they have to win all 3, guys.
You think they can get there at 5-6?
I think they can, but they're going to have to go. I think if they win, they have to win 2 of the 3, right? If they're 5-6, I think they can get in, but Watson's going to have to go 5-1. I think 10 wins probably gets them in.
But how do they get in?
Thing.
Because there's 9 teams ahead of them right now in the AFC. They're not going to hold any wild cards except maybe Miami.
Jason,
if they beat
to your point, they're 1-4 against the teams ahead of them and 0-3 against the teams ahead of them that are in the playoffs. It doesn't, listen, the numbers don't add up. However, if they do win, 7 of their last 9 games, which they're going to have to do to get into the playoffs, and let's say the only losses are to Buffalo and either Baltimore or Cincinnati at the end. Let's say they lose one of those 2 and lose to Buffalo. Well, then you would, you're probably not going to get a lot of tiebreakers, but are there going to be 7 other teams that win 10 games? Maybe, but
right now, yes. Right now, do
you want me to run down the schedule? I got it in front of me with teams. So the Bills are 6-2.
Yeah.
The Jets are 6-3.
That's the one that's going to kill us.
That's not going to last.
It won't. But they got to run.
They got the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Yep.
The Dolphins are 6-3. That's why this week is so crucial.
Yeah.
And the Patriots, who own the tiebreaker, are 5-4. So the whole AFC East is above 500. In the North, you have the Ravens at 6-3. The Bengals at 5-4. So you have the tiebreaker currently over the Bengals. You'll see them again. Same with the Ravens. In the South, the Titans are making the playoffs. The other 3 teams are trash.
Yep.
And then in the West, the Chiefs will make the playoffs at 6-2. The Chargers are 5-3 with the tiebreaker over them.
Yep.
So
I think the path is the division. You have to win the division.
I agree, but that's why I was so disappointed last night that the Ravens won and looked good
impressive,
doing it. So that's why I just keep going back to the Jets game. You can play. There were a lot of other ifs.
Totally agree.
But the Jets game is an all-time epic collapse.
Loss. Yes.
It was. If you go back, it's been 30 years or whatever since a team blew a 14-point lead with under 2 minutes to go. Just hold your damn serve there.
Yep.
The difference between 4-4 and 3-5 is light years.
Yep.
It's light years. Because at 4-4, there is an absolute path to get there. I just don't see how it happens now.
Here's the problem with trying to win the division, right? You've already lost to the Ravens. Mm-hmm. You're, 2.5 games back of the Ravens?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the Ravens schedule?
I have, yes.
7 of the next 8 games are against sub-500 teams.
They have one team on their schedule the rest of the way that's a 500 team.
And that's the Bengals. That's it.
And they've upgraded their defense as much as I've ever seen one team upgrade their defense during the season.
Yeah.
They looked completely different.
They know what they're doing.
Agreed.
They have for a long time.
They do. I never thought that trade was even possible.
With Roquan Smith?
I just didn't think. Why would Chicago let him go?
Well, they weren't going to sign him, but
why?
Because they're rebuilding. He's an off-ball linebacker. But I was doing some research and I saw that Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta was, looking for players at the deadline, and he didn't want to make a big move. But then he had a Built Bar, And the Built Bar inspired him with the extra
He's
protein
getting better at hiding his
rushing
delivery
through
on
his
these.
veins to go out and make a big ballsy move like acquiring Roquan
So
Smith. And
Built
he goes,
Bar
you know
led
what?
to that trade.
I can
Makes
afford
sense.
Roquan Smith because I saved $100 by using promo code LOCKEDON15 on that Built Bar order, and that extra cash helped us get Roquan Smith. It sucks for Browns fans, but Eric DeCosta,
Gotta respect the Built Bar, though.
He's a supporter of Built Bars.
Mikey used to show his fastball. I used to see
I
it
know.
coming.
I used to see it coming a mile
Now
away.
he's
Now
really
he just slid
deceptive
that
in
in
that
there. I'm like,
delivery.
what?
I just told Anthony I got a good one coming. Be ready.
Yeah, it was well done.
Pretty proud of that one.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Yeah,
He
it was-
did look really good last night, though. In all seriousness, Roquan Smith made a massive difference. He held Alvin Kamara to like 3 yards out of the backfield on receptions, which no one has done.
He neutralized one of the game's best players, and really, I don't know. Olave had an okay game, but their passing game, they're a mess. The Saints are an absolute.
No Landry last night. Jarvis wasn't out there.
Yeah, I mean.